So I wanted to have a conversation just, talking about the very initial emerging. I know we've got folks in here who are writing at different stages in their writing careers, some very emerging ideas of screenwriting or filmmaking. And we just talking, you write, you act. Can you share how you got started in writing for television?
For me, I'm an actor, and I had to write for myself in order to have things that I enjoyed to perform. It wasn't just somebody's black best friend or a judge. So I would write a lot of comedy characters, and that kind of jettisoned me into wanting to write sketches, and then from there, longer form scripts, and yeah, that's how I kind of look at it.
I would consider myself a very working class creative. I think it's important, the background, because I feel like it shapes the way that you enter the industry. I'm Haitian. If you're a Caribbean or if you're an immigrant, then there's definitely an expectation that you get a professional job, quote unquote, a real job. And I had that out of college. I wasn't a performer really growing up. I sang in the choir, but not really ever individually. I never considered myself as somebody that would go into the creative arts in any way. But I just had this burning desire to get on stage and try stand up. And eventually I did it, and then I got into improv comedy. And I think performing live is a great, it's a great education to get into writing, because you get to really understand what's funny, what is good enough to keep an audience's attention for a sustained amount of time. And I think it translates to writing. So the performing is what got me into writing. And basically I just was in a day job and I wanted to get out of it as fast as possible. So I just did everything I could to make the leap into working full-time as a creative. So that's really my entryway.
Thank you. So you both created things on, I want to say on your own, but I know we don't ever do things completely on our own, right? So how did you find your people to make those very first initial projects that then maybe helped you learn more about your own style and what you wanted to do next? How did you assemble your team?
So fun fact, me and this girl, we were on our first indie improv teams in New York City together. And so we were invited to this event separately, so it was very auspicious, so thank you. For me, I'll speak on an Astronomy Club, because a lot of people find that an interesting story. So, I'm in New York, I'm doing improv, I'm at a school called UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade. They have a house team system, a performance system. So a house team called Herald. And on Herald night, you have multiple teams that perform over a 2-hour slot. And it's not prestigious, but it's what students are looking to do to get the reps in, performing on that stage. And so me and a bunch of the other black students, we wanted to prepare for the audition. Sometimes you go into these audition rooms, especially with improv auditions, and the whole point is that you're vibing with people, and you're supporting, and you're yes anding, and it's sometimes they just don't get it if you're not in a room full of people that kind of don't get it. And so we were working together to prepare for this audition, and we luckily we were able to audition as a group. So yeah, we were a pre-formed team. Back at that time, they didn't really have that many that did that, so it was kind of a big deal. We were only the second pre-formed team to ever get on Herald Night, and then to get on Lloyd Night, which is the farm teams for Herald. It's so complicated. Let's not talk about it. Anyway, so we got on, and then we were the only all-black team ever in UCB history. So it was it was great. And then, so also what they do is they break them up. After a year, it's kind of like a visa system in the sense of getting more students in so they can perform. They break you up and then you go to different herald teams on a different night. And the original and the goal is to get to like a weekend team. It's a whole thing. It's a system. But anyways, we still wanted to stay together. So we started writing sketch. And so we wrote a sketch show that ran at the theater for about a year. It's really well received. It was called Journey Through Black History, where we reimagined historical events through a Black lens. And actually our web series with Comedy Central took some of those sketches and filmed them. And so we did that for a year, and then we got some attention. Because of it, Comedy Central approached us to do our digital series. From there, we worked with them and created 6 sketches, which you can still watch online. And that helped us get the next Netflix show because we had like a proof of concept. And so, long story short, how did me and my people come together? Well, we all just wanted to audition for this opportunity in a comfortable way and be able to feel like are putting our best foot forward and are being our best selves for the audition. Yeah. That's long. Sorry.
No. I moved to New York, which was big, from Massachusetts. I'm from Massachusetts, and my family lived like an hour outside of Boston. So, and I just wasn't really in the comedy scene in Boston, and I also just wanted to move to New York because I just always wanted to move to New York. So after college, I moved to New York, and I started doing stand-up, and I started doing improv at the People's Improv Theater, which is where Monique and I met, and then we also, both of us, went over to UCB as well eventually. And that's really where I found the community, like at the People's Improv Theater, at UCB, the classes I've taken, the stand-up community that I became a part of in New York. And when I was doing my project, I actually remember I had an idea for a web series to do with our improv team. It was called the Day Camp Kids at the time. This was like over a decade ago. And they just were like giving me pushback on it. I don't even remember what it was. Yeah, you guys were just like, well, how are we going to do it? It was like, what does that even have to do with it? Let's just do it. And so I just was like, no, I'm going to do it by myself. And I had a real sense of urgency, and I came from a professional background. Like I had quote unquote real jobs my whole life. So I just had no time to waste. Like I did not want anyone holding me back in any way. So I really looked for people who, I tried to create a standard for what I'm going to do and find other people that are going to meet that standard. And so I tried to create a schedule and a production schedule for my web series and all that other stuff, and made it a thing that people felt like I'm taking it seriously, so you're going to take it seriously. So I really feel like even when we formed our improv team, it was like we were all taking classes at People's Improv Theater, the Day Camp Kids, and it was a very white scene, especially at the time. It was very white and very male. And the Day Camp Kids we created because literally it was the only people of color in the classes. So we all kind of gravitated towards each other, and we were like, let's make a team. And so I really feel like that's how you find community. You seek out education, or you start going to the events. So like in my case, it was the open mics, and then I started doing shows, and then I started doing improv classes at the People's Improv Theater and at UCB. And you just find your like-minded people. You find the people that have the sense of humor that you have, the sense of urgency that you have, that are taking it seriously. Because the people that were taking it like, oh, I'm just doing this as a hobby, I don't want to work with you at all. Like, because we don't have the same trajectory. So I was not playing any games. So that was neat.
Oh, no, that's right, finding people. So look where you are right now. You are at a Torch Literary Arts event. You are in a room with other creatives and writers. Meet someone after we wrap so that maybe you can find some more people to be a part of your team, right? But no one is doing it as a hobby. That's what I'm hearing. Only serious applicants. Only serious talking about before we came out here was like, and also to make sense of the title. I'm sure some of you probably looked at the title of this event and were like, we got something. What's that? So that was me having fun and giggling and writing something. I love coming up with titles for the events. But the idea behind it was really questioning how do you know, as folks who do all different aspects of the creative process, right? For yourself, for others, writing and acting. I'm sure you have all kinds of ideas that come from within and ideas that people approach you with. How do you know when something is like, oh wait a minute, we got something here. This is something we should move forward with and develop and see if it's got legs, right? But even when you're doing it yourself, there's still investment, your time, working a part-time job, extra job to get some cash, something, so you buy that new camera or, borrow your friends, whatever you need, buy a little food to feed people pizza after filming something, but still it takes effort. So how do you recognize when all of the inspiration and ideas are coming your way, that thing that makes something viable? Like, yes, let's pursue this.
I mean, for my personal work, I always try to pull from my own personal experience because I feel like obviously it's like unique and there's no one in the world who's telling your story. So it's really imperative that you tell your story, even if you feel like you don't have, even if you feel like it's almost too personal, I want you to be able to have the confidence to think that there will be people up there who will relate and who will be so thankful that you decided to share your story with the world. When it comes to sketch, so like Black Lady Sketch Show and even Astronomy Club, we obviously, yes, pull from personal experience. It was very important for us to come from like a Black lens. On the show, it's like, with Black Lady Sketch Show, our sort of like mandate is like magical realism. So like we'll take a grounded sort of event that we all recognize, know, have dealt with, and we try to push it to an observed reality that even gets to a sort of like magical point. And so to answer your question about like what hits in a way, I think if it's personal and if it inspires like passionate feelings, I think that's a great place to go from. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think for me, it's literally what is exciting. And sometimes you know kind of quickly, and sometimes you don't. And I think especially for like Mo and I, because we've been doing it for so long, especially because we started with live performance, we started with stand-up. I started stand-up, we started with improv. Like after you heard jokes, after you sat through like 1,000 stand-up shows, it's very hard to laugh. Even if something is funny, it doesn't mean it's not funny if you don't laugh. But it's just hard to get you to laugh. And it's hard to get excited about ideas, especially after you've been in a writer's room, because you've pitched 1,000 ideas, you've heard 1,000 idea pitches. So it's like when something is exciting, when something's like, oh, that's funny, like maybe evokes that makes me think of this, and we can build on it, and especially if you keep coming back to the idea, because you really know an idea is good is if it doesn't die. Because an idea can be good, but it can not have that stickiness factor. It can just immediately evaporate. You never go back to it again because it just wasn't exciting enough. It didn't have enough legs. And I do think the more you do it, the more you start trusting your intuition of that's funny or that's good, that's an idea that's gonna stick. The more you do it, the more you recognize it.
Thank you. So you got that idea, the thing that's sticking. We were also talking about development. And, many of us know about the writing portion. We have to understand screenplays. We know that there are things that make the shows, but there's a lot apparently goes on even before the screenplay is written, or the episode is written. Can you talk a bit about how you develop an idea to then pitch? To get to the point where someone else sees, this is something and might have the funding to produce it and back it. What does the development phase look like?
Sure. Because this is a big question. So I'm going to try to distill it because there's a real formula for how you pitch a TV show. Like, you always start with your personal connection with the show. Like, if you're in a pitch meeting and you're pitching a show, you start with what is your personal connection with the show? Because the idea is, why are you the person that should be telling this story? And literally, and why now? Why is this story important to tell right now? So those are two questions that are really important in the pitch room. And then after you talk about your personal connection, you jump into, the idea itself, like the actual premise. And you talk about the world of the show, like, are we in the 1800s? Is this an animated show? Is this live action? Is this, is this a coming of age story? Is this a story about, you would say something about, like, this is, like, I have a show, a pitch I've been working on forever. It's a story about mothers and daughters, like, that's what we're talking about. And I have a lot of sisters, and that's where my personal connection is to it. And then we talk about the characters and the pilot idea. This is for a TV show, obviously. And then I talk about the other episode ideas that I have. So it's like it's like really structured. Like, those are the things that you have to have in the pitch. You need to know who the characters are. You need to know what the world of the show is. What is the tone? Sometimes you can do like a mood board. You can do like visual. You can bring in visuals for your pitch so that they get a sense of literally what does this feel and look like. And then, I think I talked about the characters, the tone, the world, the pilot idea. You just walk people very briskly through the pilot idea. You don't have to like literally go scene by scene of the pilot. You don't need to have a full pilot. A lot of times networks prefer that you don't have a full pilot. I always recommend writing a pilot and not sharing it, just so you have the pilot in your head and you know the pilot story well, so that you can talk about it. But a lot of times if a network buys your show, they're going to want to have input in the pilot story anyway, so you don't want to share your pilot story. That's like conventional wisdom. There's always a chance that something else might happen. There's truly no rules in Hollywood, like, things happen all the time. But that is the conventional wisdom. And then you talk about the why now at the very end, which is like, I think if I was pitching my show right now about mothers and daughters, we're in a country right now that is, criminalizing women's bodies to a certain extent, if you want to say it like that. And I think that women sometimes can be just this, what word am I trying to use? Like this caricature, and not a person, and not a human with a story and a background and feelings and, and I think it's like, I really want to see stories about Black women where, about my mom. Like, I'm learning about my mom for the first time in her real history. For my whole life, she's just been like a lady. But she has likes and dislikes and, particularities and, she has a history that I don't know about. She's a person fully without being my mom. So that is kind of how I would talk about if I'm pitching this story. I like to get real emotional because that's me. But, really put your personality into it, like, truly, why this show, why you, is exactly what you're trying to answer in the big scheme of things. And then the actual development part, if you actually sell the show, it's like a whole other, it's a whole other deal. It depends on who you're working with. Like for instance, I had sold the show. At this point, I forgot what the question was. I'm just going on. But I had sold the show. I had found a producing partner. I had an idea for an animated show, about growing up Haitian in Miami. I think I might still go out and sell the show again, but those producing partners ended up not being the best because it was a fully white team, and as much as they tried to understand me and my point of view, they really couldn't, which I felt was very nuts because it's a story about a family. They just happen to be immigrants and they just happen to more specific you get, the better. Like, specificity is universal. You know, like, human life is universal, whether you're from Haiti or from Pakistan, where, you know what I mean, it doesn't matter where you're from. Like, everybody has had a human life, and the fact that those producing partners just couldn't understand, like, they just kept changing my pitch and kept doing this. It has made me very cognizant of who is working on stuff with me, because if they don't understand, then it's going to be, that pitch of course died, and it didn't get sold because I don't have the right producing partners, I don't have the right team behind me to help really get this to the next level. So that's a very long answer for a question I don't remember.
I mean, what I like to do is I'll contextualize it a bit, because, you know, for people who don't know how one would get to be able to pitch a television show. So, I mean, I feel like if you're not staffed writing on a TV show, or you know, writing anything, like literary or literature or whatever, you can be asked to develop ideas. So it's not really a paying situation until you sell the show. It depends. But you can either be, you have an idea for a show that you reach out to a production company, and you might even have to pitch them in order to have them work with you, or you just like have general meetings and are connected with them, or, you know, a network or a streamer might have an idea themselves for a show, and they want you to develop it to expand the world, and then re-pitch it to them with your personal ideas. That's just sort of like the process in order to get an idea sort of on greenlit and on the way. So, in case anyone is wondering how you get to pitch a show.
Thank you. So you talked a little bit about having the right team, right? And, you know, towards Literary Arts, we focus on creating space that centers Black women writers, right? Primarily because, you know, that's not the reality in the rest of the world, right? So I think about like the state of those spaces currently when you see like Adam Elementary, and everybody loves Adam Elementary, you know, Quentin Brunson is doing amazing things and working with an incredible cast, but that's one person, and, you know, with actors cast in that show in one space. We're also seeing shows, you know, get canceled, right? You know, so many incredible shows not being re-upped. Like Astronomy Club, I wanted to see do a lot more. You know, I wanted to see Great Crew do a lot more. You know, rap shit and so on and so forth. All of these great shows, then having their moment in the sun and then fizzle. So I think it would be, you know, great to hear what is your perspective on those spaces right now. Is it getting better, worse, compared to what? You know, us outside, we're just watching our shows and it's sad when they're gone, you know. Maybe this gets better.
Put the mic between us. There was a content boom during the pandemic, obviously, as everyone knows. Everyone was home and could watch shows, and so even before that, as we were transitioning from networks to like the Netflixes and the Apple TVs and the Amazons, all these different streamers were coming about and wanting their own particular signature type show. So there was a lot of work, I think, between 2017 and all the way to like 2021. And then it popped, just like with, you know, housing crisis and other types of economic issues. The bubble got too big and it's burst. And, you know, streamers are not making as much money now as they were before. And so they're not ordering content. And then we also had the writer's strike and the actor's strike. And, you know, I feel like people are afraid to push forward things that are new and a risk. Whereas like something like Abbott, which was proven to be doing so well before the strike, immediately came back right after the strike was done. So, yeah, it's pretty bleak. But I hope it's getting better. And I'm feeling okay because, I really do like this time off to rejuvenate and sort of to come up with ideas and develop ideas. And so I feel like it's actually been a good thing for people to sort of like recalibrate the work they want to do, what they want to put their passions into, and so on and so forth. But
I think it's an interesting time right now. I think it's an interesting time. What I will say is that no matter what trends are going on, what I've noticed is that the cream always rises to the top. Excellence always kind of, hopefully, I'm saying always, but again, there's no rules. It's really hard to know, But what I've noticed is that executives and companies don't know what they want. They know it when they see it.
yeah.
They know it when they get excited about it. And I honestly think after about almost a decade in the industry, I think that creatives should operate independently of the industry because the industry is very detached from creativity. And it is not the place to go to be creatively fulfilled necessarily. If you are someone who wants to express yourself creatively, you have an idea, I would not depend or wait on the industry to validate those ideas or to validate you as a creative. I would say, go ahead and do your thing, get good, make it, put it out there, see the response that it gets. Get good, just get good, because I think we are in a media landscape that I honestly don't know what it's going to look like because, I even think that there's so much oversaturation and there's so much stuff. It's really hard to make a splash. It's really hard to get attention. It's harder to get attention online than it was a few years ago. I really think it's about just, if you want to make a thing, if you want to write, just do it. Create your own audience as much as possible. Build yourself up as much as possible. Because the industry is just going to do what it do. And these companies are going to do what they do. They are chasing profits. They're chasing other things that are not necessarily creative excellence. Maybe A24 is still a company that's still trying to do that. Because they keep coming out with really great films. HBO used to be that, but then they got bought, and now their quality has degraded significantly. I think they're no longer a company that only chases excellence. HBO is notoriously in the industry is known as a place that takes years to develop anything. Issa Rae even had an article where she was talking about how frustrated she was that it took 2 years or more or whatever to develop Insecure. I know of shows that have taken longer to develop because they are just once they like an idea, they just develop it until it's right. But I don't think we're in a landscape where you can do that anymore. I don't think you're in a landscape where you have the money to just develop something for 2 years because there's we've created this content hamster wheel where all these companies constantly have to put stuff out, and I just don't think the level of quality is there. I watched some shows on Netflix that are awful, they're horrible, and I'm just what made it so that show got on versus Astronomy Club getting canceled versus, versus this versus that. Somebody explain, there's just no explanation. So I just really think that it's hard to predict where we're going when you look at what AI can do at this stage. It's hard to predict where we're going when you look at what these companies are doing and how the quality of work has degraded, I think, significantly. And I think it's hard to predict just because of just the sea of stuff that is out, So that's why I think that more and more personally, I'm just not specifically going to the industry to fulfill myself creatively. It's if I want to do something, I just try to do it. I just try to make it because, that's my answer.
It's very optimistic.
Well, I'm going to step out and take a couple questions. Yeah, anybody have any questions? Raise your hands. Don't be shy. When are you going to be in a room like this again where you can ask questions to real life, in-person, working artists? Yes? Yes, I see one in the back.
things. First of all, can I just say I love your work. I was so excited when this event came on my radar. I was like, yeah, I gotta go to this. Okay. Y'all have done some great work, and it's some of my favorite work that has been out there thus far. So I just want to say that first and foremost. But my question is, as Black female writers, do you find that you have faced any specific challenges or even specific celebrations being in writers' rooms, whether they be predominantly white or whatever? I'm not even with you. I don't know what it is. But if there's anything you can speak to that is specific from your experience being in these kinds of rooms, I would love to know.
Challenges.
I think, I've said this many times, I have a podcast called The Working Writer, and it's all about this. So check it out. But I think that Hollywood is, it very much is, a microcosm of the United States, and all of the structural racism that is in the United States, it very much is represented in the writer's room, whether it is that people make assumptions about me. I've been in many writers' rooms where I'm the only Black person. I've been in writers' rooms where I'm the only Black woman. I've had 2 Black showrunners, 1 female showrunner. I think the challenges are being underestimated, marginalized, assumptions being made about me, whether it's that assuming that I don't know things or that I was there just because of a diversity hire, all kinds of bullshit that you would go through in any professional room. The politics are there sometimes in writers, and it really depends. I think the big celebrations have been little things, like when I turned in a script I'm really proud of. You know, when I pitched something that I thought was really good, you know. When Grand Crew was a big celebration because that was a show that was a predominantly Black cast, cast and crew, Black writers, Black showrunner. I'd never been on a show like that. There was so much love in that room because we knew it was a very rare experience, and so that was a big blessing and celebration to be a part of. We got 2 seasons, even though it feels like 2 seasons of the feed nowadays. So it's that's a celebration. So I would say those are for sure the challenges are any challenges that you would have in any kind of as a Black woman in any space.
I also share those challenges. I think there was also the question of celebrations, which I guess is the feeling of being in a room like Grand Crew, which also is how I felt at Astronomy Club, and also Black Ladies Next Show. I've been pretty lucky to be in rooms where, my identity is celebrated. I think another challenge is that finding a way to make your story universal, it's not so you have to translate it, that it's not automatically accepted, is a challenge, I think. Because there was some times on Human Resources where, as you know, that show is about, it's a big now spin-off, and it's about hormone monsters that sort of guide us in a comedic way. And it's I was really pushing for a storyline to talk about, mental health in Black families and dealing with the Black lens towards going to therapy and seeking help in that way. And it just, for some reason, because maybe white people haven't had issues with that, or it just didn't translate in a way that they wanted to explore it. And I just thought that was a shame, because it's I don't know, I just felt it was something that I came into the room to kind of offer, and they really wanted to sort of make it a blanket universal thing that sort of everyone, and you would think everyone everybody is dealing with issues with therapy, not issues with therapy, but issues with mental health and like what therapy means to them and that sort of thing, but I guess not. Anyways, so I bring that up not to sort of speak to that room in a negative way. I actually had a very wonderful experience, but I do want to not warn you, but challenge you that like that will be an ask of you to be able to like think about things that are important to you as a Black woman, important to the community, and like having to try to translate it in a way so that it's, you know, for everybody.
Thank you. I see one over there.
Back there too, when you're ready. When you're ready.
Yeah, and they're just gonna say me upstairs.
Hi, I am a urban fantasy writer trying to turn, I write about Black women turning werewolves who eat people. And one of the things I'm trying to do is transform that into a screenplay where Black women's rage is the story, but I'm using the lens of being a werewolf and self-control as each chapter. And the thing I'm struggling with is trying to maintain the dignity of Black women when we have also been treated like monsters in so many different spaces. And since you've been in rooms where you have all white, writers, people who don't understand, how have you managed to maintain the dignity of the people you're trying to represent while also kind of, clearing the bar of that universality you were talking about?
Sure. That's an interesting question. How to maintain the dignity? That's what you've asked, right? About when people are when people are being treated like monsters. I mean, first of all, I think that's a cool idea. And set to personify Black female rage. That's pretty fun. And from my experience in the room, what I learned is when something makes me feel away, a type of way, like when something makes me feel uncomfortable, I have had to really learn to pay attention and acknowledge my internal reactions to things in the room and speak on them. So I feel like you have so much control of it because you're writing it, you know what I mean? Like, if you are writing something, or if you do a table read and it hits somebody some type of way, I also think that's another good way to do it, is to like do a table read, have other people read it, especially I think if you read it in public, then you get a real clear, like, this is how it hits us, So I think we can feel when something, but sometimes I think like, Color Purple is like an example of that, like, because like when you look at the Seeley storyline, and you see how much of dignity she experienced in that movie, in that story, I think there's a difference between trying to maintain a character's dignity and also telling the story of somebody living through indignity, So I think, that's a line that you gotta decide how you want to walk it.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything to add to that. Great answer.
Hi, my name is Deborah Lawson. I'm also a Haitian woman, so that's also cool to see. I'm currently getting my master's at UT in screenwriting, and I'm writing a couple of stories. One story, takes place in Haiti, and there's another story I'm writing outside of class that also is like a fantasy world that's inspired by Haiti. And so I guess my question would be, learning, being in school and learning about, how Hollywood is it's really unpredictable and it's very hard to like tell creative stories and stories of quality. So I guess my question is, how important do you think the global Black community will be to telling, Black stories, from America or from other countries around the world? And how do you think it'll look like working with like the international community like in the future?
That's a good question. I kind of want to start with it, just because
Just because she's Haitian.
How?
because the trend in the industry that I've noticed over the last few years is a breaking down of international barriers, is, because there's this chase for money, that means that they have to make things very universal. Like you're seeing stories on Netflix from India, you're seeing like Japan, like you're seeing like, Love is Blind freaking Brazil, so like, especially a platform like Netflix is super international, and I think that it gives you an advantage to be able to tell stories from those other places, especially right now with media and the news and things like that. So I think it's really smart to think globally, and I think that the way that the industry is moving is more and more towards a global market, less centralized, and I think the industry in general is getting more decentralized, especially after the pandemic. People started working from wherever they were living. I live in Vancouver, Canada now. I don't even live in LA anymore, and I don't necessarily think you need to live in LA. Of course, it's great. But you don't necessarily need to live there. I think there's a lot of things that you can do right here from Austin. There's a lot of big international festivals here. So, and I do think that as the media landscape gets more splintered, more overrun with content, that it's more important to like have a community that you can tap into, like the Black community, like Black women, like queer, BIPOC, if that's what who you're making it for, because I just think that people are still gonna want to see themselves reflected, and I think that people will want to support smaller creators because stories have just been taken over by these big conglomerate corporations and just watered down and made to garbage. So I think there will be a desire to support and uplift and, watch, stuff from individuals and indie producers and things like that.
I mean, I am Canadian, so I can speak to the fact that, I have an outside perspective as much as a Canadian it is. I mean, I feel like we're very close to America in a lot of ways. But yeah, globalization is a big thing. Like you were saying, Netflix has its offices all over, and the production companies all over. I think all of the streamers, because I've been watching a lot of content from Disney is doing a lot of stuff overseas and stuff. So like you were saying, I mean, I can't really add that much, but yeah, speaking to your own personal lens, to your own personal story will fit really nicely in this global sort of media world. Good question.
All right, so maybe two more questions. Excuse me if I don't stand. I'm just curious about something that's really out of my bandwidth is the new social media. Is that a good way for you to get your stories out? I know they're trying to shut down TikTok, but and podcasts and different ways that you can get your stories out there without having to be dependent upon the studios and the streamers and all of that.
I think social media is a good way, but again, social media is very different than it was a few years ago. If you're going to build an audience on social media, I think it depends. I think you have to know what your intention is when you get on it. If your intention is to build an audience, to build a brand as a writer, to build a brand around your show idea or your film idea, whatever it is, I think you have to have a little bit more of a strategic approach to it, because you have to post constantly to build an audience, and you have to do all these things, and you have to do reels and do all this stuff. So it's just are you down for that? Do you want to do that, or do you just want to try to sell your thing to a distributor? For instance, you could produce something, you could make it, and then try to license it to these places like Netflix. Maybe try to sell it to a local distributor or something like that. I feel I don't know for sure, but just because of the fact that South by is distributors are here, financiers are here. So I think it's thinking first, what is my intention? What is it that I want? Is it that I want my thing to be distributed? Is it that I want to build a brand? Is it that I want to build an audience around this specific idea? I think once you get clear about that, then you can decide, which way you want to go. And all of it is just going to take a bunch of work, basically. It just will. So, up to you.
In the pandemic, I taught a class at UCB called From Sketch to Social Media. It was taking your, 3 to 5 page sketches and distilling it down to a sort of social media, digestible piece of work. And like Charla said, that is not necessarily going to launch careers, but what it will do is it'll gain an audience. It'll help you hone your skill if you're constantly posting and trying to come up with, funny content. I think as writers, focusing on writing should be, tantamount right now. And I think like the best things to do is trying to get your work made yourself. Whether it be crowdsourcing money on things like Seed and Spark, in order to, make your own web series or make your own short videos or short films, submitting your scripts to script writing contests, to things like Torch Literary Arts. I think like that is better suited than trying to become a social media, trying to understand the landscape of social media. Because I really don't think it like serves work well, but it serves personalities well. Oh, if you're an actor and you're an actor writer like I am, I think social media is good because then you can write characters and perform them. And I've seen, several performers on TikTok. Who's that? The girl that the black lady who does all the corporate errands. Corporate errands is so funny, and like Lisa Beasley, that's her real name, and I think from this, things are going to happen for her. And actually, early on in the pandemic, there was that girl Sarah, who used to do the Trump sort of voice dubbings, and she got a show on Netflix because of it, and
I think she's releasing a book.
she's releasing a book. So I think as a performer writer, social media is much better for you, but for writers, I think sticking to like slightly more conventional routes, and then also, trying to get your work made in whatever context you can. See, a proof of concept is key.
One more question?
I'm right now.
How do you maintain centeredness, meaning that you basically live day to day? That you're constantly like show is canceled, something gets picked up, something has to move, to whatever quarters that they have to, you have to wait. Like, how do you maintain your centeredness?
That's a good question.
Centeredness, right? That being centered. I think that this is one of the most important skills that you can learn as a creative, especially if you decide that it's something that you want to pursue full time, is learning how to deal with unpredictability and to just deal with inconsistency and it can be such a roller coaster, especially if you're an anxious person, if you are financially unstable, if any of these things you're dealing with, it can be very stressful. And I think so much of the stress is just from the not knowing. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how everything's going to turn out. How do you maintain centeredness? I think that there are very concrete ways to do that. And I think one of the ways that we lose centeredness the quickest is by putting all of our eggs in the entertainment basket. And Mo and I can so relate to that because especially early on when we were exclusively performers, you have to be obsessed to a certain level. You forget everything. You forget everyone. You just are obsessed. You're just performing and that's what you're doing. And that's, there's a time and place to be obsessed. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes maybe you have to balance a whole life. Maybe you have to balance kids and a full-time job and all these other things while you're obsessed with doing this one thing. So I think that knowing what fills your cup and prioritizing that and prioritizing your health, your mental health, your physical well-being above it. I think we live in a, literally Mo and I were just talking about this because I went through a really bad burnout and I talk about it all the time because I think I never knew anything about it. I just didn't know that it could happen, and then when it happened, it was really bad. And it was because we all have grown up in a hustle culture that tells us that work is the most important thing. You know, our status is the most important thing, and like we should chase that at all costs. And there is a heavy cost to chasing that exclusively, you know, and forgetting about your own well-being and everything else. So I think that the way to maintain your centeredness is to stay grounded in the real world and stay grounded with your friends and your family and like making time for people's things. Because there was a point where I wasn't going to anybody's birthday, I'm not going to your wedding, I'm not doing it. I got my show comes first, my this comes first, and that takes a toll after a while. So I think it's like having a sense of what is important to you and prioritizing it.
And it helps to have a bunch of different hobbies and passions. Being able to multitask between them. So like if writing isn't popping off, then I'm like, I'll do more acting. I'll do an improv show, or I will do a character bit show, and if the acting isn't working out, I'm not like booking acting gigs, then I'm like, then I'll maybe do more social media stuff. Like I'll try to post more. I just try to keep myself busy and keep myself creating, no matter what avenue it is. And it doesn't have to be fruitful because I don't do it for the money. You know what I mean? I do it to sort of keep my engine going. So anyway, you can be creative and manifest. You're trying to manifest in 2024, then do it, you know?
All right, now, thank you so much. Can we get a round of applause? Monique Moses and Charla Lauriston. Thank you so much for coming out to We Got Something and listening to them talk about their careers and experiences and asking those great questions. I also want to plug some other events, so make sure you are following torchliteraryarts.org online. Subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss anything. We're also on all the social channels, so find us and follow us. We post everything there as well. But we've got some more great events coming up soon. We've got our writing circle. Meets twice a month for BIPOC women writers. It's completely free. It's virtual. We hold 1 hour set aside for you and your creative writing. We provide a prompt, but then those who need a prompt, maybe you don't know what to expect, you just want to come in and try some writing, take up the prompt. Some people come in with very clear deadlines. They've got to get pages in for a script, they've got to get pages in for revisions for their editor, and they use that hour to write, but they're doing it in community with other BIPOC women writers. Over 300 people are registered for that writing circle from around the world, log in. So it's a beautiful space. Check that out. Our next one is on Monday, the 18th. Then on the 19th, we've got the Salon, which is our open mic event that is at Antone's, the only open mic of its kind ever to be at Antone's. We celebrate and hold space for poets and songwriters. So if you are a songwriter and have original music, come and perform at Antone's. It's kind of iconic. I mean, a lot of incredible folks have performed at Antone's, and you can too. So you'll see that on our website, and we also have registration open right now. I imagine there are screenwriters in the room, so BIPOC women writers, screenwriters. We have, of course, the Bev Chukwu, Story First, writing your first screenplay. So it is very early concept ideas on how to start writing a screenplay with an incredible instructor, Bev Chukwu. So check us out again online, torchliteraryarts.org. Stay, I'm going to turn the music back on, eat the rest of this food, and say hi to Monique. and meet somebody else new. Thank you so much for coming.